Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're talking about the Peacock documentary Angle. I'm not really sure when this was added. I can honestly tell you that I didn't see any social media buzz on Twitter or anything about WWE posting up a new documentary. It's it was good. I was glad that I watched it. To me, honestly, it was a little bit slow in the very beginning. I think that people who watch documentaries, people who like videos on, Olympic style wrestling, will like the Kurt Angle story. I think people who like WWE documentaries would like the Kurt Angle one, and people who are involved with people like with some sort of a substance abuse. The story of Kurt Angle beating his addiction and getting off of drugs to become a family man yet once again was very, very good. I think those people would really, really like it. I thought, honestly, what I learned from this through watching the first hour about him being in high school and learning that he was a good wrestler and sort of choosing to train harder for wrestling over football when he had his first coach tell him that how good of a wrestler he was, and if he trained hard was going to win state, which then rolled him into going to college and pushing forward towards training towards going towards the Olympics. I had no idea that Kurt Angle was involved, almost involved with Foxcatcher Wrestling. Foxcatcher Wrestling was a documentary that I watched. I believe it was on Netflix or Hulu, which followed the DuPont family who had a lot of money. For some reason, he was in love with Olympic athletes. There was a few other sports there besides for wrestling, but wrestling is probably the one that he's most known for because of the tragic ending where, he had brought two brothers on to sort of be the head trainers. And, through a mix of just bad decisions, drugs, and I guess jealousy, DuPont ended up shooting one of the wrestlers and killing him, which then led to the cops having to take him down to end sort of a hostage situation at the house. I think the documentary is better than the actual movie Foxcatcher that came out. Steve Carell plays DuPont. And is it Josh Hartnett? No, that's a different, dreamy dude. The guy from 21 Jump Street that's not Jonah Hill plays one of the wrestlers. I'm not sure who plays the other one, but the guy really, really wanted to train him, and Angle was actually supposed to go to the ranch to train at the gym, I believe the day after the shooting happened, and then the cops takedown happened. Really, really crazy story how it goes from there. But he ends up going all the way to the Olympics in training for the Olympics. I believe in the U.S. Opens, he breaks his neck just because he was being thrown, and instead of wanting to land on his back, he stuck his head out to sort of land on his head, which then led to his neck snapping once it hit the mat. He was trying to get sort of to prolong his his physical. As long as he could, the Olympics said they wouldn't prolong it, so he just knew that he had to get ready in that period of time, which led to him training, getting into the Olympics, and then getting all the way to winning the gold medal. This beginning part of the documentary right here is over an hour. It was to the point where I thought that's all the documentary was going to be about, because it seemed like it had gone on so long. We all know the pose that he hits. WWE showed that so many times. But once it gets to that point, if you're not an Olympic wrestling fan, but you're a Kurt Angle fan, it dives into wrestling fast. It's basically Vince making him an offer. He's going on news, interviews, and they're asking him what he's going to do. He's saying he's going to turn it down because that's not the type of wrestler that he is. And we don't hear about him going to ECW. We don't hear about him trying to be a news anchor himself. He talks about how, once you win an Olympic medal, you have... Ronda Rousey said it best. You go to the Olympics, you come back, you have an Olympic medal in one hand, and basically you get your dick in the other, and you got nothing to do. The Olympics, they treat you like, you're a national treasure, but the second that it's over, there's no place to go from there. He says he watches Monday Night Raw. He falls in love with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He sees how athletic these guys are and says he's in. From there, they don't talk anything about him training with the Funk Brothers. They just basically make it look like he just showed up at the pay-per-view to wrestle Shawn Stasiak and just took his Olympic training and was off to the races. I'm sure Kurt didn't train as long as a lot of other WWE wrestlers ever have or at that time. But they didn't really do any of it, and they sort of go through a few of the feuds. We have interviews with Jim Ross, we have interviews with Stone Cold Steve Austin, we have interviews with The Rock, sort of putting over how fast he picked it up and how he was going, and then from there we get into the story of how professional wrestling sort of took. It's so demanding on the body that it took him down so fast. He talks about being in a match with Brock Lesnar, and Brock had him on his back and was supposed to run from one post to the other. And when Brock, went into the post, he kind of turned sideways, which then led Angle to run his head right into the turnbuckle. And it broke his neck. He couldn't move his arm. He just really had no movability in the ring, and he knew something was wrong. He went to Stone Cold Steve Austin's doctor, who said that he could do a neck fusion on him, but it would take him out over a year, 12 to 15 months. Kurt Angle didn't want to do that because of the fact that he was so young in his career. He didn't want to put it on pause with the fear of someone else taking his spot. And then once he would come back, he wouldn't really have the same traction as he had. If you really think about, the WWE, this would be in 2002 to 2003. It wouldn't change a bunch. But if you think about how the wrestling business changed from 95 to 96, maybe even 97 to 98, 2000 to 2001. There was big changes in the business from the style of matches people were having that I can understand him not wanting to do it. He actually got a random call that he thought was a hoax, where he said that they could go in, take out the bad part of his neck. He would have to rest for 6 weeks, and then he could go back to wrestling again. And from there, he continued to break his neck 3 more times and do the same 6 weeks off, to the point where Vince was like, you're going to have to take more time off. This is not working. We're going to kill you, and this is not worth it. Basically, he said that he went over to a neighbor's house, and the neighbor was a fan, and said, is it true you're not going to be able to wrestle Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? And he said that he wasn't going to because his neck was hurt, and he wasn't going to be able to do it. And he saw a DirecTV kind of advertisement for WrestleMania 19 in Seattle that had, Kurt and Brock on the front. And he just said, if I don't do this now, there's a good chance I'll never be able to do it. And he just basically threw caution to the wind and said that he was going to wrestle that match no matter what. He called Vince. He said he's going to do WrestleMania. And then he's going to do whatever he has to do to get his neck fixed, and battle back from there. He goes out, he has the match. It's great. They don't really put over how good the match is or anything. We're just kind of telling the story of the broken neck after broken neck after broken neck. From there, we pretty much jump all the way to 2005, where he breaks his neck again. He says that he's doing a lot of things in his life, which I think AKA means drugs, but I'm not 100% sure. And he doesn't really even know what match he broke his neck in because he was in so much pain all the time. We're sort of showing like his ECW run, and Vince calls him in and just tells him that he knows he's doing something and he has to shut him down. And this ends up being the release of Kurt Angle. A lot of this is really kind of just pranced around. Like, they don't want to throw a lot of stuff out there. And the next thing he says is that he's working for TNA. So there's no real talk of the release. There's no talk of all the nasty things that Kurt Angle said about WWE as well as Vince McMahon during this time period. If you watch, I believe, the High Spots shoot interview with Kurt Angle, I would hope that they honestly don't even sell that thing anymore. I mean, he calls Kurt Angle Kurt Angle calls Vince McMahon the devil, and he's just putting all these things out there saying that they made him work, they wouldn't let him have time off. They just put his feet to the fire, just basically saying that he had to do this and there was no other choice. When they get into TNA, they're not really going over his Samoa Joe feud or matches against Mr. Kennedy. They're just basically saying that his life at this time period was a train wreck, and that they're not even basically portraying Karen as being his wife. Giovanna, his wife now, is the one kind of talking about how his life was. I don't know if she heard from Kurt, or if this is, from Karen, or if this is just some sort of creative kind of editing that they did to get them through. But there's no Jeff, there's no Karen, just him, Giovanna is basically all you get. And they don't really talk to the kids, but they show a lot of home videos where the kids are featured. But they talk about, him getting 4 DUIs in 5 years, him just spiraling on pills, where it started with 4, which led to 8, but then just led to him just having I think he called it a cocktail of pills, pretty much, that he was just taking all of the time. I know there's a lot of people who like to refer to this TNA period of Kurt Angle's career as Perk Angle, which, does have a ring to it, but I'm sure he's not in love with that. But, he ends up, going because his wife says after the 4th DUI that she's done. And he even admits that he should have more than 5. I remember story after story of them coming out. I remember one story of him crashing the car in the median in the middle of a snowstorm, and the cops picking him up, kind of like wandering down the freeway, which I believe is like in like North Dakota, or it was like in the middle of nowhere. That's a time right there that easily he could have died. It just doesn't make sense. And especially, I know that he was the highest paid TNA guy there, but to go out and put it all on the line and die wrestling for TNA at that time, I don't get it. He ends up, getting his life fixed. They don't really go into how hard it was, but they talk about him getting a surgery after the point of him being cleaned up, and they give him pills, and he actually is saying that he's going to take them, thinking that he's just going to take, the pills needed, and we know when they're out, and Giovanna's like, no, you're not taking those. I don't care how you do this. I don't care how you get through this, but you're going to be able to get through the surgery without any pills, and you're not starting that downhill slope yet once again. For them, that's kind of like the closing door on this documentary, is they kind of say that, like, since he did this, he can do just about anything. They don't really talk about at all about him going back to WWE. It's just once the documentary is over, there's a shot of him in the ring and words on the bottom saying in 2019 he retired from wrestling. I would have loved to honestly hear what he thought about, losing at WrestleMania. Was that 29? No, not 29. He wasn't there. Was that 34? 35? 35. To Baron Corbin, which went nowhere. They could have made Baron Corbin look like the monster killer after that, but he just beat Angle, and that was it. We could have easily had Angle versus Cena or something where it was just a good match and he lost, but we didn't. I believe, they could have talked about him going into the Hall of Fame. They could have talked about him doing that where he had to step in for Roman Reigns and wrestle with the Shield. I think everybody would have loved to hear a little bit about Vince coming to him and just being like, well, we really need you tonight. Because, when that happened, that was huge news. That whole pay-per-view was screwed up, like that SmackDown pay-per-view with the elevated liver enzymes where people weren't able to wrestle because of the wellness time. And, it even screwed up the Punjabi prison match that was set up. That has nothing to do with Kurt Angle. I don't even think he was there at the time. But, there's definitely more stuff that I would have loved to cover. I'm sure Kurt Angle looks at this documentary. He's proud of it. It's his career. It's his life. But as a fan, maybe make it like a Netflix doc where it has chapters. Maybe we could have got a chapter on his Olympic wrestling. We could have got him training to be there. WWE, TNA, returning to WWE, and beating drugs. That's my opinion. Not the best one, not the worst one. I made a video today asking everybody, before Iron Claw comes out, make sure you go and you check out World Class. The Legacy of World Class Championship Wrestling and Heroes of World Class. I honestly think that's going to make your experience going to the theaters and seeing the Iron Claw a lot better. So we're in a wrestling documentary mode, and then also on the Major Brothers Wrestling Figure Podcast today, the last question was about wrestling DVDs, and the guys kind of got sentimental. Mark even talked about selling all of them and wished he didn't. So, peace out, guys. I'll see y'all down the road.